President Biden didn't get the memo about trying to cool down partisan politics. As the president hits the campaign trail to gloat about the Democrats' massive spending bills, he's taking aim at moderates and conservatives at a stop in Pennsylvania. The president even mocked supporters of the Second Amendment.
The rights granted by the Second Amendment are not unlimited. They're not unlimited. Right now, you can't go out and buy an automatic weapon. You can't go out and buy a cannon. And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun.
That was weird. Does the president not realize the threat of government tyranny is why the Second Amendment exists? Let's go to the panel. Marie, I bet you like this speech. Am I right?
Well, I think the president was right. And many legal experts, including members of the Supreme Court, have said the Second Amendment is not unlimited in terms of its ability to let people own whatever they want. But look, President Trump is feeling, excuse me, ooh, that was a slip of the tongue there. President
Wowza.
Biden is feeling, I know that was a big one, is feeling pretty confident right now. He's done a number of important legislative things, gotten them done, gotten them through Congress, signed them into law, and I think his agenda is back on track. Democrats are now overtaking Republicans in every generic poll about the midterms, and there are extremist Republicans running in places like Pennsylvania, people like Dr. Oz. The Democrats say, look, if the choice is between a Joe Biden-led Democratic Party that is, saying we should fund the police and passing bills that help Americans, and this extreme right-wing party that promotes violence, says elections are illegitimate, and says that abortion is murder all of the time, that's a case Democrats are happy to make every day, Tom, and that's what you see President Biden doing out in the campaign trail.
Okay, Inez, I looked at that as kind of a threat. He was saying, hey, you Second Amendment tough guys, you're going to try to come up against the government? We have F-15s. I don't think that was just rude. I mean, I think that was, he's talking about his own citizens being the enemy of the country.
Yeah, I mean, this is also the purpose of the Second Amendment. Self-defense is a part of our natural rights, but also it's supposed to be an armed citizenry and to protect against tyranny. That is very much a part of our history, of our constitutional system. And actually, I want to make one point about the previous segment. When you say the federal government has the right to set policy, yes, it's its job to set policy of the elected officials. Right? That's the basis of all representative government, of small d democracy. It's not the job of unelected bureaucrats to set boundaries on policy for elected officials. That is, I think that is, we're finally seeing at the end of, I think, at least 100 years of sort of progressivism, this idea of detached rule by experts finally come crashing down where the rubber meets the road, where it's very obvious to everyone that these detached experts, whether they call themselves bureaucrats, whether they're in, government or outside of it, that they have their own ideological priors. And they don't have the actual power that there's no constitutional basis and there's no legitimate democratic basis for the kind of power that they're wielding over the rest of Americans.
I agree, Inez. I never trusted experts. And now I think there's a lot of people, there's an army of people now who do not trust experts because the experts ruined our country for the past 2 years. They ruined our country. Spike, the thing about the Second Amendment, it was to protect against tyranny, and guys like Joe Biden are trying to say, no, that's not what it's for, right?
That's true. I will say I appreciate the irony of the man who left tens of billions of dollars worth of advanced weapon systems with the Taliban talking with us about responsible firearms ownership. But anyway, I think that, to say, speaking of the Taliban, to say, oh, if you want to take on the government, you need an F-15. The Taliban didn't. The Vietcong didn't. The Ukrainians that took on the Russian invasion didn't. What they needed was a well-armed citizenry who was willing to fight for their homeland. That's what scares him. There are two statements. You can't defend yourself from the government with an AR-15. a bunch of numptydumps walking through Capitol Hill almost destroyed our democracy. Those both can't be true. One of them is simply not true. And the simple fact is that the idea, first of all, you actually can own a cannon, and you always have been able to. I agree with Joe Biden that people should be able to buy F-15s if they can afford it. But I don't think that we should have the government, which has demonstrated themselves to be both irresponsible and murderous with the weapons that they fund with the money they steal from us, to decide what peaceful, law-abiding Americans should be allowed to own. Because let's be clear, gun control is for law-abiding people. It is not for criminals, and it isn't for the criminals in government either.
I appreciate that, and I don't appreciate the president threatening his citizens. Thanks, panel. A great discussion.